I have 6 nearly identical barrels sitting on the table in front of me. They're all 16 inches, they're all 5.56 or 2.23, yet every single one of these barrels feels completely different in your hands and performs differently when you're shooting. This barrel right here weighs almost nothing. This one is a Socom profile barrel for cool guys who do cool guy stuff. And this one is a government profile barrel for guys who think they do cool guy stuff. And this one has flutes, but I can't play hot cross buns on it. And this beast right here feels like I don't even need the rest of the rifle. I could probably just club someone with it in a home invasion situation. If you've ever found yourself getting confused while looking at barrel profiles on the internet, I feel your pain. Forums, Reddit, YouTube, everyone swears that their favorite barrel type is the only right answer out there. And part of what you're hearing is just 40-year-old myths and bro science based on feels. Today, let's talk about barrel profiles and end the confusion from this selection once and for all. If you've been watching this barrel series so far, you already know that we've covered a lot of ground since we started. Episode 1 was all about materials that go into making your barrel, and episode 2 covered your rifling, your twist rate, and how the barrels are actually made. And then in episode 3, we showed you how barrel length actually affects velocity, ballistics, and the handling of your rifle, and even the laws that govern the rifle itself. Now, I know we've cleared up a few myths already, but there's still one topic that starts more arguments than just about anything else. And guys, that's barrel profiles. Today, in episode 4 of the AT3 Tactical Barrel series, we're gonna settle it. Let's go. Now I've got these 6 different 16-inch barrels lined up right here so that you can see the real difference in each profile for yourself while we talk. But by the time we're done here, you're gonna know exactly what each profile actually does and which ones are worth the money for your very specific and individual needs. As always, let's start at the beginning. The story, as with most stories about the AR-15, starts with Papa Eugene Stoner and the very first AR-15s that eventually became the standard issue M16. You see, the US military was desperate to replace the M14. That thing weighed in at about 11 pounds loaded and required troops to carry a ton of 7.62 ammunition out in the dense jungle terrain of Vietnam. It was far from an ideal situation for those guys. Stoner, who was an aircraft engineer by trade, had a radically different idea. What if you take the service rifle and make it lighter, using modern materials and a smaller, high-velocity cartridge that cuts weight so the troops in the field can carry way more of it while still being highly mobile while they're out in that jungle terrain? This is where the original AR-15 or M16 enters the picture. Part of keeping the rifle as light as possible was using what is known today as a pencil barrel profile. They had a super thin walls that were just a hair over 5/8 of an inch in diameter, going the whole way down, making it crazy light in comparison to the heavier barrels of the previous M14 that troops were being issued before this thing ever made it over to the jungle of Vietnam. But if we fast forward just 20 years to the 1980s, the United States Marine Corps decided that they needed a better barrel for their riflemen, and they had a couple of good reasons for it too. First, the Marines needed something better for sustained fire. In their world, in the Marine Corps world, the rifle company lives and breathes by the rates of fire. Their doctrine calls for the average rifleman to keep sustained rates of fire going downrange towards the enemy for very long periods of time while other groups of Marines maneuver on the suppressed targets. But the Marines also demand accuracy with their high rate of fire. So that means they wanted thicker barrels that would handle the heat of sustained fire better than the traditional pencil barrels that came on the original design of the rifle. Second, the Marine Corps' armorers thought that the Marines were doing Marine things to the barrel. It wasn't uncommon for heavily used barrels at this stage to fail drop gauge tests in the armory, which led to the armorers to believe that the Marines were just using the barrels so hard in the field that the pencil profile barrels were literally bending to the point of extreme failure. It was either from sling tension back when the slings were still used as stabilizing devices in marksmanship, or because the Marines were using the barrels as pry bars to open crates of crayons or something, I guess, I don't know. But as it turns out, that drop gauge test produced a bit of a misdiagnosis. According to some sources, the real culprit stemmed from copper buildup at the gas port, sticking to the gauge, not the barrels being bent by just old crusty jar heads. Unfortunately, by the time this got figured out, the front half of the barrel had already been thickened to create the original government M4 profile spec, and it was just kind of a thing until Socom looked into it and discovered that the real problem with those thin barrels was back here by the chamber. You have to remember, back in the early days of AR-15 manufacturing, we didn't have the technology that we have today. If you think back to episode 1 and 2 in this series, you'll remember that I talked a lot about the modern rifling and stress relieving processes that are used in barrel manufacturing. That technology and knowledge base wasn't as strong as it is today back in the 1960s through the 1980s. So what you got was a barrel that didn't handle stress and heat very well, which would cause stringing of shot groups, which is when your shot walks up and down the target when the barrel starts to heat up. But if you fast forward to today, or you check out episode 1 and 2 of this series, you'll see that with the modern stress relief, better steels, and tighter quality control measures, the pencil barrels of today can perform quite a bit better than their Vietnam era ancestors. Okay, so I'm throwing a lot at you already, but what even is a barrel profile exactly? It's simply the shape and thickness of the barrel along its length, and how it tapers or steps from the chamber end all the way down to the muzzle. We measure it by the outside diameter at the key spots, right in front of the chamber, which is the thickest because that's where the pressure is highest, and then under the handguard at the gas block and out at the muzzle. Now, a pencil barrel might stay around 0.625 inches the whole length of the barrel, and an HBAR or a heavy profile barrel can jump up to 0.920 inches or more under the handguards for that extra rigidity and the heat sink, but it's all about balancing the weight and stiffness of the barrel to maximize the ballistic performance of the barrel itself. Now that you know what a barrel profile actually is, let's talk about what these profiles can actually do for you when you're making a selection and building your own AR-15. There's 4 big performance factors that change depending on how thick or thin your barrel is. And I'm gonna show you each one using the 6 barrels sitting right here in front of me today. First, and arguably most important and obvious for how your rifle feels, is the weight and the balance. If you take this pencil barrel, it's got almost no weight to it, which is gonna keep the front end of your rifle super quick to swing and engage targets and easy to carry all day for when you're doing super long matches or going out into the woods to hunt something. Contrast that with this crowbar, HBAR, and you can see how it would increase the front end weight of your rifle by quite a bit. If you're dominantly shooting off of a bench or in the prone, this might be what you want, but your arms are gonna be feeling this barrel weight over a super long session down at your local 3-gun match if you're running this bad mamma jamma right here. Long story short, the profile of the barrel is gonna decide where the balance point of your rifle is. With a lighter barrel, more of the weight is gonna be in the back towards your body, whereas the heavier barrel is putting that weight out in front of you down at the end of the rifle. Second, the profile is gonna be the determining factor in how the barrel handles heat and sustained rapid fire. Now here on AT3 Tactical, we've talked about the cycle of operations before. Every time you pull the trigger, you're igniting the primer and cooking off powder inside of the casing to create a superheated gas to push around down the barrel. That heat and energy is going to soak into the barrel every single time you pull the trigger. The more barrel material you have, the better that barrel is gonna be at absorbing that energy and keeping your groups tight down at the dangerous end of the barrel. A thin pencil barrel like this one has very little steel to work with, so it's gonna heat up fast. If you start shooting a rapid fire string with one of these, you might see your groups open up or string vertically. When that happens, if you shoot enough to make it happen, that is, it's the barrel getting soft because of the excess heat. Now, with a thicker barrel profile like the Socom or the HBAR, you essentially have built-in heat sinks for all of that thermal and kinetic energy. That's why the military went heavier in most cases with their standard issue rifles, because they need high volume barrels that can withstand heat without losing any accuracy over prolonged fights where hundreds to thousands of rounds of ammunition are being being expended in a single long sitting. Now, heat management is probably one of the biggest reasons that people still argue about barrel profiles on the internet today. But I don't want to take a hard line stance here. I just want you guys to understand the thermal facts of life in the event you didn't already, which is the entire reason why we're making this barrel profiles video. That said, barrel stiffness, accuracy, and barrel whip is the third of the 4 performance factors that I need you to take into consideration when you're choosing a barrel. It's not something that you can easily see, but it does make a difference based on your intended use case for the rifle that you're building. The thicker the barrel material or the heavier the barrel profile, the higher the stiffness of the barrel itself. When a bullet accelerates down the barrel, the whole thing has to flex just a tiny bit. We call this flexing the barrel whip. And the stiffer your barrel is, the less you're gonna experience that barrel whip, which can cause some inconsistency over longer ranges and during heavier rates of fire. Here's the part that most people get wrong, and that's cold bore accuracy. On that very first shot of the day when your barrel's still cold, the one that actually matters when you're hunting or you're in a surprise defensive situation, or for most of us, it is, like I said, just that first shot out of the range. The barrel is gonna be stone cold, just like they are right here in front of me, room temperature. A good heavy barrel is going to shoot basically the same as a pencil barrel. The profile doesn't magically make that first round more accurate. What really decides your cold bore precision is the barrel's quality, how straight the bore is, how good the rifling and the stress relief in the barrel are, how well the barrel is crowned, and of course, how good the shooter's fundamental marksmanship is, not how fat the barrel is. So where the heavy barrel really wins is once the barrel starts heating up. That extra stiffness keeps the barrel whip under control and stops the groups from opening up or stringing when the barrel starts to get really hot. So if you're running rapid fire, shooting a long stage, or doing high round count training, the thicker barrel stays tighter longer than your thinner barrels. But I mean, for most of us, realistically, just shooting simple 5.56 for 20 to 50 rounds at a time on a single stage, the cold bore difference is basically invisible on the AR-15 platform. You'd really have to be getting into like larger caliber bolt guns for it to have any measured difference over 10 rounds. Last, we need to talk about the felt recoil. The barrel doesn't make nearly as big of a difference as, say, your buffer and gas system do, but it does have a marginal impact. Here, just like in every stage before, more material usually means a better overall experience for the shooter. But you gotta remember that you're gaining performance at the cost of adding weight and usually cost to the end of your rifle. Now, let's get practical. I'm gonna pick up each one of these 6 barrels and tell you exactly what each one does the best and who it's really made for. For this specific task, we're using all Faxon and Ballistic Advantage barrels because it's what I just happen to have on hand over on my workbench. But that doesn't mean other barrel manufacturers suck. It just means it's what I grabbed from my workbench today when we were setting up to film. So don't take it personally if you're not a Faxon or a Ballistic Advantage fan. It's what I got. All right, stick with me here, guys. I know this video is getting kind of long, so if you have questions, drop them down in the comments section, and myself or CJ will make shorts to answer them. If you've got a question that's good enough, we might pull it over to our podcast, which you can find by searching the AT3 Armory up in the YouTube search bar. We'd love to see you over on that channel. We get into some pretty heated discussions. All right. Let's hit this rapid fire real quick. Pencil barrels. You might also hear these barrels being called lightweight barrels, A1 barrels, or ELW profile barrels. This is really the original M16 barrel style. It's got super thin walls. It is usually in that 0.625 inch category for the whole length of the barrel. And I know it seems like I've been dogging on these a bit for the first part of this discussion, but guys, I assure you that these things really do have their place. If you're looking for maximum weight savings and speed and you want your rifle to feel very light and quick in your hands, this is really where you want to be. Hunting, hiking, 3-gun, home defense, throw it in your get home bag, or really any build where you want to save as much weight as possible, this is your go-to barrel. That said, I know we mentioned that the early M16 barrels had some issues. Let me be the first to tell you that modern manufacturing has alleviated a lot of the drama. Or I'm probably not the first to tell you, but I'm telling you again anyways. Proper stress relief on the manufacturing floor combined with free float handguards have made these things lightweight do everything barrels, especially if you're keeping your round counts relatively low in your shooting sessions. I mean, if that sounds like you, then the pencil barrel might be exactly what you need. Government or M4 profile barrels. All right, so now we're firmly in the .750 inch zone here. This is your classic stepped barrel that many of us have been building with since the 1990s. The profile is thin under the handguard and thicker up front where the front sight post sits. You might also have a notch towards the front of your barrel, and that was or still is for attaching underbarrel attachments like a master key shotgun or the M203 grenade launcher. I think there's a couple of companies that have those now. Honestly, these are super drippy if you're doing a clone. They've been used on millions of rifles over the last 40 or so years, so they aren't bad barrels. Yeah, I said that. You're getting old, Greg. That 40-year-old statement hurt my heart too, but this is also where the myth comes into play on the .gov profile barrel. And believe me, I've been victim to this myself. I used to believe it, but that myth is government profile is the gold standard because the military uses it. Spoiler, it was never engineered for accuracy or heat reduction. It was a quick fix done in the 1980s that stuck around because Uncle Sam at the government moved slow. It's actually thin where the barrel gets hottest, right behind the gas block. So it generally heats up faster than it should and kind of gives you the worst of both worlds for most civilians, in my opinion. But man, it really does look cool. And if you're doing any kind of underbarrel attachment whatsoever, like I just mentioned, like a master key or a 203, this is usually gonna be your best bet because this notch usually interfaces with that part of the system that you're installing underneath of it. And that leads us into our Socom barrels. For me and most of my use cases, this is the true gold standard for barrels. It's thicker under the handguard and tapers down a bit towards the muzzle. And it's really a great middle ground between the pencil barrel and the HBAR. It's perfect for those duty use guns or really for anyone that wants to run super long strings without the rifle turning into a huge boat anchor on the front of your rifle. In my opinion, it's the smartest compromise that's sitting on the table here in front of me. You get way more heat resistance and stiffness than the pencil barrel here, and it's gonna run a bit cooler and stay more consistent during rapid fire, but it sheds a lot of the excess material and weight from the thicker barrel systems that we have here and that are out on the market today. To sum it up, the Socom basically looked at the old government profile and said, you idiots, you put the meat in the wrong place. And then they moved the thickness back here near the chamber where it's supposed to be, where the real heat builds up, and they gave it way overall better balance. If you shoot a mix of range days, some with rapid fire, and you want your rifle to also stay light enough that you actually enjoy carrying it with you, this is probably the barrel profile that I would most recommend. But again, it depends on what you're doing. HBAR. You might also hear these called heavy barrels or bull barrels or varmint profile barrels. These things are tanks. There's really no better way to describe this thing. We're usually talking about the same profile as the pencil barrel, but instead of a .625 inch profile, you're looking at .920 inches of steel underneath the handguards. With all of that extra steel, you're getting heat management and stiffness that's just like your favorite Instagram influencer. On steroids. You're also maximizing the barrel's ability to stay accurate through high round counts, and you're minimizing the felt recoil impulse to the maximum by adding all the extra weight. But only if you tune your gas system and tailor your buffer system appropriately to go with it. So maybe check out this video on buffers from CJ. Bench rush shooters, prone shooters doing competitions over range, and varmint hunting guys out in Wyoming are the real target builder for these barrels. It's kind of why they call it the varmint barrel, but they're really great if you need maximum weight. The myth here is that heavier always means more accurate. Now, on a cold bore shot, that's not exactly the case. But once the barrel gets hot or you're running rapid fire strings, yeah, this thing is gonna stay locked in while your lighter barrels are gonna start to walk sooner, because on the bull barrel, there's more material to dissipate that heat and handle the thermal and kinetic energy being produced by all of those shots. If you shoot a lot of rounds in one sitting, or you're competing in high power rifle matches, this is probably your go-to barrel. I'd also consider the HBAR system if you're running super hot ammunition, or if you're starting to get into the higher calibers on the AR-15 platform. There's a reason that ELR guys like to run them thick barrels. Okay, so let's get just a little weird for a minute and talk about some of the modern hybrid barrels that are out there. This specifically is a gunner barrel from Faxon. A lot of hybrids like this exist today. You've got Hansen, Core, S2W. I can go on and on and on, all the cool new stuff that's been coming out every single year. But basically what's going on with these modern hybrids is that you have barrel subject matter experts who have been manufacturing and designing AR-15 barrels for close to 4 decades now. And their engineers have some ideas on how to build a better mousetrap or fix the mistakes that the .gov has made in their procurement processes over the last 40 years. And that's really where these ones come from. What we've got here are barrels that try and usually succeed in being the best of all worlds. They're gonna be lighter than your HBAR barrels, but stronger than your pencil barrels. And they're gonna be better designed than the mass-produced government and Socom profiles, with great balance and stiffness and heat management. When we're talking about the gunner barrel profile specifically, we're basically combining the government profile and the pencil profile to make an ultra lightweight barrel. Now, I can't speak to all of these hybrids that are out there today, because I'm gonna tell you the truth, I haven't shot even half of them because I'm a Socom profile fanboy. But if you want CJ and I to go out to the range this summer and shoot every single one of these hybrid profile barrels that we can get our hands on, let me know down in the comment section and we'll gladly make that video. I bet CJ'd love to get out on the range and shoot some weird barrels, especially if we put them in 300 blackout or something. For now, all I can talk about is the gunner profile barrel, which I've shot, and it really combines these two barrels like I was talking about, while trying to remove the weakness of both and play to the strengths of each. Last, but definitely not least, we have got the specialty or the modified barrels, like this bad mamma jamma right here. A lot of manufacturers have these available, but again, guys, this is an area where I don't have nearly as much experience as I would like to talk about it with you guys, like I have any kind of authority on the subject. What I do know is that the fluting in these barrels drops weight while adding extra surface area for faster cooling. Basically, it's a lighter barrel that cools down faster in between shots because these flutes dissipate the thermal energy better. From my understanding, these are for guys who want to shave every ounce possible while still running super hard with the barrel. They're great for competition shooting, they're great for long heights, or even doing suppressed builds where heat is a serious concern. But with that said, you are trading some of the rigidity and stiffness of the barrel for a little bit of weight savings, and just keep in mind, it's a specialty manufacturing process to do this, so you're gonna pay for it. They're not cheap. All right, I want you to take a step back and imagine that your barrels are all the suspension of your car. You've got to match up the suspension system with the intended purpose of the vehicle so that you can keep the ride right. You don't want to slap soft street coils on a race car because you can't expect it to stay pinned to the track when you're pushing it hard through all those turns. So think of barrels like this. Your pencil barrel is really just a lightweight racing suspension that's meant for super quick responsiveness and minimal weight on the vehicle that you're driving super hard. It might get a little loosey-goosey when things heat up on the track, but guys, that's what pit stops are for. A government profile is that really cool old school suspension from the 1980s that looks just super dope. And it worked well enough back in the day, but it doesn't really do anything as well as the modern systems that are out there today. Now with your modern hybrids and the Socom profile, you got that well-tuned street performance suspension for your daily driver. It's got excellent balance and it just soaks up the punishment while keeping everything super fun to drive. Then You got your heavy duty towing suspension. That's the HBAR, or the bull barrel right there. It's rock solid when you're really working hard and ready to just take a massive load of abuse so you can get the job done at the end of the day. Bottom line, guys, there is a best barrel profile for the rifle that you're building, depending on what you're doing, but there isn't a best overall barrel profile. Don't let a 40-year-old myth or a form science bro make that decision for you. Use the information that we gave you here today and throughout this entire barrel series so far to make that decision based on what you know you're going to be doing with the rifle that you're building. As always, I'm Josh with AT3 Tactical, and if you're in the 45% of people still with us at the end of one of these long videos, don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button because it really helps CJ and me out. And let me know down in the comments section what your current goal is for your next build. We'll see you in episode 5 where we're gonna finally tackle barrel finishes. I'm waiting for the teleprompter. A lot of dead space here. Ba, 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 ba. We measure it by the outside diameter. Why am I saying it like that? It's like a Greek god or something. Now with the thicker barrel profile. Now you can throw in a shot of Ronnie's ass. You can fix that in post.